Miami. Miami, 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 Miami. It feels like Miami.
Welcome to the Healy podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today, his first time on the show, a long-time homie, been on his show a couple times. Time zones make it difficult to make this work, but we had to make this happen at the in the twilight of 2021 of the Miami Heat UK. Dan Healy, what's up?
I am very, very well, G. What an honour to be on this show. It's been amazing. As you said, you've been on my show a couple of times, all various things supporting some of the stuff that we do. But this is a pinnacle for me to be on Heat Beat. Man, I mean, I've been listening to this show for years, from probably 4 or 5 years. And I remember when I used to go out and I used to do running and a bit of training, and I'd have this show on in my ears, and I think, man, this is what it's all about. And to now be a part of it, to be on the show. Great stuff.
Dude,
how are you?
You are the best. And I've been wanting to do this forever, but as you know, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you may be like, I never got a stream notification. That's because we're not streaming this. Because I've been trying, Dan lives in the UK. That's I think a 5-hour difference from East time, correct?
Correct, yeah.
And it's difficult to get poor Dan on at 7, in the evening, Eastern time to stream for you guys. So if you guys follow us on Twitter at MIAHeatBeat, you may know that we're off this week. There's no Hangover Time. There's no Weird Off Postgame pregame show. We're taking a little break, and I said, you know what? I'll podcast with some guests throughout the week so we can still give you guys content and give our staff a little bit of time with the holidays. So I thought, what better time to take advantage of us not streaming than I was like, Dan was the first person I messaged. I was like, hey, I would love you to come on. I can make this work at a time for you, and we made this happen. So Dan, I'm very glad that you're here to talk Miami Heat.
Pleasure. I'm really, really pleased to be asked on. And it's been one of those things. The last couple of days, I've been up sort of 3 in the morning, but it's been like eating, drinking, because it's Christmas time, family, friends, games, quizzes. We've been doing all this sort of thing. But it's different because I'm normally up at that sort of time anyway, watching Miami Heat basketball. It's just been different this week. It's just been sharing it with the family.
Well, you got a nice 3:30 game yesterday. So
and I didn't even watch it because at that time it's incredible, isn't it? That's a 8:30 start for us over here.
Perfect.
Is, perfect timing. But of course, I'm with the family. We're playing games. We're having fun. So give me a 1:30, 12:30, midnight start. I'm all over it. I'm there. Give me a 8:30 p.m. time. Can't make it. Sorry.
Can't. Yeah. No, that's so funny. Yeah, and I actually had to watch the game later on. I was playing volleyball. I had some friends in town. We all tested before we played. Everybody, we're safe here. We all had to make sure that we were going to get each other sick. Negative. I'm 4 for 4 in negative tests. I'm very proud of that. We love to see it. So I watched the game after and was very pleased. Jimmy looked good. Lots of stuff to get into today. I guess, Dan, I want to talk about like the Heat just in general without their stars and everything. Let's take a little bit of a temperature gauge on what they're doing on both sides of the floor. So they're 8th in offense and they're 6th in defense. They're 5th in net rating behind Cleveland, Phoenix, Utah, and the Warriors. All really good teams. I think the interesting thing is their half-court offense, according to Cleaning the Glass. They're at 16th. In half-court offense, which is interesting. And I think around there is what's going to get it done for them. And I think half-court offense is always going to be a big question mark with them. And that's their half-court offense without 2 of their 3 best players missing, a lot of time, Dan. So that's actually encouraging to me because when they were all healthy, they didn't have their shooting in a row. And now that their shooting looks a little bit more alive, they've kind of held the ship, and I think when they all get back, we're going to see that number jump not to top 10, but I think if they get that to like 13, 12, I think we're cooking with oil.
It's quite incredible, isn't it, when you think that 3 starters. I mean, you could argue even 4 if you're going to put Oladipo into that eventually, which we may well see. This next man up mentality. You tell me another team in the league that can do this. That you can get teams that are, players all the way down to, your 12th, 13th, 14th man, not only just coming in and getting you through some solid minutes, but actually giving you this production. And you're right, this sort of just how well-rounded that this team is now, both on everything. It's probably the most well-rounded I've ever seen a Heat team, in the fact that we've got so much shooting, but we've also got so many intelligent players, high IQ players that can defend, point of attack defense. We've got some good size in there now as well. Shooters all round. We're not just talking about the obvious ones like Tyler and Duncan and Max. Even people like Deadman are coming in. Omar can shoot. All of these guys can. I mean, I know we live and die by the three quite a lot, and we've sort of had to during this period. But I don't think I've ever known a team as well rounded as what this one is. Gabe Vincent, coming in and doing the job that he's done defensively. It's astonishing. I can't understand how, with this many players missing for this long, for how many key players, and yet we're still a top 10 team, both offensively and defensively, is quite astonishing.
So if we look at the last 12 games, you kind of said they live and die by the three. The Heat are leading the league in 3-point percentage the last 12 games. So that kind of tracks with when Jimmy and Bam both went down. So funny that, not coincidence. And I think, Dan, it's kind of to your point about their well-roundedness. I think that plays into a couple factors. When Jimmy and Bam are out, you get rid of two guys who are non-shooters. Bam is a vertical spacer and is a great roller. I will say there's something interesting about Bam. Bam is typically an advanced analytic darling. This year, not so much. He's been kind of not favored by those metrics. Jimmy Butler looks great and all that, and Bam doesn't. So that's just a quick aside. So you have Lowry playing with a bunch of shooters, right? Even if they're not hitting like Duncan, he's still defended really tightly like a shooter. So you've kind of given your offense a little bit of life. And sometimes it looks bad when they don't hit shots, but, leading the league in 3-point percentage over the last 12 games with Lowry as QB1, with a bunch of undrafted dudes and wily vets. PJ obviously playing incredible. What you said about their point of attack. I mean, let's think of last season and the year before that. You have Kendrick Nunn, Goran Dragic, and Tyler Hero, which, I think two of those three guys play hard. But it was difficult for them to stay in front. Now Gabe and Lowry are really taking the lion's share of point guard minutes or point of attack minutes. And I think that shows pretty starkly, right? Their defense is surviving without Jimmy and Bam, which that used to be just not, that just was not true back then, right? Like those guys left the floor and your defense was an absolute disaster. So the 3-point shooting, the sustained defense, Erik Spoelstra, Dan, I don't think is getting enough credit. And I even had a little debate with a good friend of mine and been on the show, Krishna, when I said Spo is coach of the year, and he's like, well, why does Spo deserve it over Kerr? And I'm like, do we not see what's happening? They're playing KZ Okpala at center and it's working, right? Like they switched the way that they use their zone. They've switched the way that they do defensive coverages, without Jimmy and Bam, you got to patchwork a bunch of stuff. And the way that Spo is not getting, I think, enough national love, I think is super indicative of him, because he's never won a Coach of the Year award. I think he's only been a finalist once. And frankly, Dan, I'm sick of it.
Well, I think that, as you say, the worst thing you can do is, after a bad loss, and we've not had many of them, we've had a couple, but after a bad loss is then give Spo a day off in the lab to go and get that sorted, because he always does. I don't think we've had two losses. I could be wrong. I don't think we've had two losses back to back on the bounce.
I think they have.
Okay, but if Spo
that road trip, the road trip where Jimmy got hurt, I think that was the low point of the season. Yeah.
But you give him that day to go and get something sorted. If it's a bad loss, he will get it sorted, because this is what he does. You are absolutely right. He is so underrated, undervalued. He doesn't get enough credit. For me, it's a shoo-in. I think it's a shoo-in for coaching. I know that we're still not even halfway through the season. There's a long way to go. But look at what he's doing. As you say, he's getting production out of people like KZ Okpala, who, we've been waiting for this, haven't we? We've been waiting for all, all of his young career so far, we've been waiting for him to explode, and he's now giving us something. And as with PJ being out, with Morris being out, we're putting players out there like for example, Strus and Duncan. Look at how Strus and Duncan, how well they work together, how much hard work they work their asses off. All of these guys, and this is all down to the scheme. And as you said, the coming in and out of the zones, the matching up. I think Spo deserves a ton of credit. G, I'm totally with you.
And I don't know if he'll win this year, because I think that they're not going to get a high enough seed to get him the award. And I think so many teams have been decimated by injuries that no one's going to be. I mean, and the Heat have not been by COVID, right? It's been by everything else. They've only had 2 guys missing time through COVID.
Yeah. It's, I was only thinking that earlier. I was looking at the Timberwolves, their COVID. I mean, they've literally got everybody out, and that's just one, team out of many that are all being hit here. I mean, it's a crazy, crazy season. But I was thinking to myself, we've got all of these guys out, but it's all fire injury. We've only had Caleb, and now, as you said, just with Kyle as well. So God knows what this team would look like if this suddenly swept through the team. But yeah, as I say, it's
well, they wouldn't have anybody left. Is what would happen.
Well, yeah, this is it. I mean, I just don't know what would happen if this goes through. We've been lucky in that sense, because, as I said, everyone's been kept out for a real injury. If this got called out because of COVID issues, and if that swept through now, I mean, I don't know what would happen. It'd end up being so falls, wouldn't it? Yeah.
They're boosted. You love to see it. Guys, get your jabs, get your booster, get your vaccine, wear your mask, keep your family and loved ones safe. Quick note on the defense, because I started when we were talking about that. I started looking at lineup numbers. Jimmy and Bam on the court together. Their defense is about 104 D rating, which is really good. It would be the second best defense in the league, third best defense in the league. So obviously incredible when they're on the court together. When they're off, 107, which would be the 8th best defense in the league. So they're just They're great when they're together. On offense, not so much. That has some kinks to work out. Jimmy and Bam on the court together are actually minus this year. They're -2 net rating, yeah. Which is very, very interesting, and it's something I would monitor when they come back. Lowry without Jimmy and Bam is plus. The 3 of them together are plus. Jimmy without Bam and Lowry are plus 17. Bam and Lowry without Jimmy is plus 9. So the 3 of them together are plus 4. Not great, but good. They just seem to work together. They haven't worked it out yet all together. The starting lineup is really good. We know that. Starting lineup minus Duncan plus Tyler, not so good. Part of that is some of those late game collapses against Utah and both Utah matches, right? And a couple other ones. So some stuff to monitor when they're healthy, but when you're getting production out of Gabe, when you're getting production out of Max, when you're getting production out of Dedmon, which we knew, when Markieff was playing incredible, before he got hurt. And I was very anti-Markieff, but I mean, the minutes he was giving, it kind of gave him a different look defensively. Really, really solidified them as a really, really good rebounding team. Their offense was good with him and Dedmon together, which was interesting because Dedmon wasn't even spacing the floor back then, Dan. Dedmon was just like kind of a pick and roll guy, and Markieff would kind of find his spots in the middle. Really, really surprised at that from him. And now I was kind of annoyed today when I was seeing like people are like, well, we got to trade Markieff. And I was like, whoa. Why we gotta? I mean, let's not forget that the Heat. What are the last Heat wins? They've beaten a bad Orlando team, a bad decimated Detroit team, a bad Indiana team, a bad Orlando team. I guess the Philly one's pretty good. So those are the last 5 wins. In this really good stretch. Obviously they beat Milwaukee and the Chicago team that are missing a lot of injuries before that, Indiana, right? And then so. It's not like they're running. This is a very soft part of their schedule that, listen, I'm not complaining. If it came at a good time, I'd rather them not play the fucking West Coast trip. They have one coming up, start the year at San Antonio, at Houston, at Sacramento, at Golden State, at Portland, at Phoenix, at Atlanta. That is a fucking brutal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 7-game road trip. What is Adam Silver doing? Jesus Christ!
The strange thing is,
what the fuck is that? I never noticed that. You're gonna kill these guys, Dan.
Well, I mean, West Coast road trips are like kryptonite for us over here as
Well,
well.
then why did they throw in the Atlanta one at the end?
Yes. just in case you haven't had enough, here's one on the end.
Because they play a
yeah.
home and home against Atlanta, so they play Wednesday, January 12th at Atlanta, and then Friday the 14th against Atlanta. At least let them go home, man.
Yeah, I mean these games. I mean they're brutal for us. I mean most of these games start at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Start 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning over here. So like it's getting it's almost time to go to work.
The 10 p.m. ones, you just got to get up at 5. At least you can get a nice sleep if you go to bed early.
Yeah, this is true. But the back to the point. I mean, the strange thing about schedules at the minute, you say we played a bad Orlando team, bad Detroit team, etc. You could be going to the Warriors or you could be going to Phoenix or something pretty soon. And this is a lot can happen in a week at the moment. You could be going there and you could be playing what's theoretically a G League team again, because it could just sweep through this, the COVID protocols could just sweep through. And suddenly, these games that are supposed to be hard on paper actually become very winnable because you're not playing a proper team. You're playing a decimated COVID-related, hit team. So that's why when you play those games that are, the supposedly easy Orlando Pistons, so-and-so, take care of them, because then when you come against the bad ones, if things have rolled around and you've got, a starting five that has only got maybe 1 or 2 regular starters because everyone else is sitting out because of health and safety protocols, then you could be picking up a real stretch of wins here. So, I don't know why everyone just wants to look at things and say, well, Markieff needs to be traded because of this, that. I'm not touching this team at the moment, man. Just this team is...
Thank you.
Is rolling. Nothing needs to change with this team.
If they need something, it's a power wing who can shoot and get to the basket, right? Which is a fucking premium in this league. You know what I mean? Like, and not for the meme, but like a guy like Harrison Barnes, Harry B, my man, somebody like that. Listen, Dan, I've been saying forever that he needs Otto Porter.
Mate,
look who's balling out for the Warriors right now.
People need to start listening more to these takes from you.
Not too much though, because I said that Max Strus sucked, and I said Gabe Vincent's not an NBA player. So just the good ones, yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah, just the good ones. Then I'll take it back a little bit.
But guys that aren't here.
You was banging the Kyle drum for many months before, and as rightly so, because I was with you 100% on the. It was a hand-in-hand marriage. So you got your flowers there, man. But yeah, Harrison B. That's perfect. That's perfect. That's the one. That's the one. But as I said, I'm not touching this team. Why are people so desperate for a trade? It's almost like for trade's sake, isn't it? That this team will roll. We haven't seen this team yet. This is the good thing. We haven't seen this team at full strength yet, and we're almost halfway through the season. That's crazy in its own sense. But let this team keep going.
We also don't have a lot to trade, right? So, Duncan is your magic trade ticket at 15.5 million in salary, right? So if you really want to get to real salary, we're talking Duncan plus PJ. That gets you to about $22 million, and now you can really match for something juicy. I don't know that they do that. Especially PJ is just outperforming his contract immensely, and he's just such a heat dude. You know what I mean? It would have to be so. And why would you want, if you're a team getting rid of a really good player, why are you taking PJ, right? Other than an expiring set. So it's PJ's value is how good he is, not the deal. And you basically be throwing him in to match salary, which is just an incredible waste of resource. So
100%. The
Duncan thing's interesting because, people talk about, trade Markieff. I mean, Markieff's making $2.5 million. It's on a minimum contract. You know what I mean? It's not, you're not getting anything for that.
Exactly. You're not getting another player on $2.5 million that's going to give you Markieff's sort of, everything. Not I'm talking about his box score, but just his everything. His all-round presence, his basketball IQ, his doggedness. He fits into this team perfectly. You're not getting that anywhere else for $2.5 million.
So maybe you add him on to a Duncan contract to get to a number, right? Because maybe the 2.5, 2.6 bumps you to the figure that you need to be at. But at that point, okay, that doesn't become trade Markieff. That becomes you're trading Duncan, and Markieff is the kind of the boost. Yeah. So the Duncan thing's interesting to me because he's obviously not performed to the level that I think is expected. And I'm a big Duncan defender. I think that people are incredibly unfair, and I think they're incredibly reductive of he's not shooting well, therefore he shouldn't play. And I think there you go, the classic for the YouTube audience. My camera goes out. He's been good, and I think maybe not in the ways that maybe not as good as maybe you'd want. They're good with him on the floor. They're better with him off. I think that's not an insignificant thing. They're plus 1.5 with him on, and they're plus 8.3 with him off. Part of that is their bench units have been monstrous. So their lineup data is just funky in general. Like Lowry's on offs aren't as good as somebody like Gabe Vincent. So not to take too much stock into that, but it's something to note. But Duncan does get you into some legitimate trade talks. Now, Duncan's salary does boom next year. So there's not too much, though, Dan, that's like out there that you're like, yeah, the Heat have to just like sell low on Duncan for that. You know what I mean?
I think with Duncan, I think people are just so quick to just say, well, he's primarily been paid to shoot. So people will look at it and go, oh, okay, 6 points last night, whatever he was from whatever field goal attempts. And they'll just say that's not living up to the contract. That's such a lame sort of way of reasoning. People do need to start looking at, yes, that is the fact that's primarily his main attribute towards our team. But as we know, what he commands, the respect he commands on the court, he doesn't stop moving. He has to work so much harder now to get a shot open than he did in his first year before he got paid. I think that he's done well to get over the slump. I think that he added some. I think he can look at Max, and Max Strus can take some credit for him getting out of this slump, because Max shows that
rotational dominance.
Sorry,
rotational dominance.
Yeah, a lot of people just thought that Max was going to be the one to replace. You know, he was Duncan Mark II. But what Max can do is obviously get to the basket a lot more. He's a lot more agile, a lot more athletic. He maybe got some more pieces to his game. And I think that Duncan maybe looked at some of that and thought, well, okay, when it's not going in, when the shot's not going, maybe just get that easy two, get that layup, get that drive, get on the board. Then your confidence will come back. And I think that we've seen that. He's done that more, hasn't he, over the recent weeks? He's managed to get those points on the ball first before he starts going off. Because if it doesn't happen quickly, you almost feel like a lot of Heat Twitter are already on his back. And I think that happens too much. Going, back to, as you said, about the trade stuff. Yeah, he is maybe, I think if you look at it and you broke it down, he's probably the most sort of expendable person on the contract, on the roster, because there is maybe somebody there that can step into his shoes. But as you say, I don't really think what's going to be out there come trade deadline. What's going to be out there that we're going to lose that production?
But they don't have anybody to move. Jimmy, 36. Obviously, you're not trading Jimmy. Bam, 28. You're not trading Bam. Lowry at 26. You're not trading Lowry. Now you're at Duncan at 15 and 5, and Tucker at 7, Hero at 4, and then you're at minimums. KZ, Udonis, Markieff, Dedmon.
He's the only one that moves.
So your two contracts to move are PJ at 7, package was because you're not getting anything for $7 million. So it's PJ plus somebody, either PJ plus whatever. If you get to 9, maybe you can get to like a $12 million deal with some of the minimums or whatever. But Duncan's the ticket to get someone.
Yeah.
And who is that going to be? So, is it going to, like, who's really available this season from a team that's going to start selling? I feel like a lot of teams, because of the plan, are going to hold players, Dan. So we have, like, maybe like the Magic, right? You have Terrence Ross, Gary Harris. I'm not moved. Those guys aren't changing my life that I'd give up on Duncan, right? Nah. Valanciunas is an interesting trade piece, but that's not really the Heat's need, right? They need a wing. They don't need another big. They have plenty. The Pacers trio of Sabonis, Miles Turner, and Karis LeVert. I'm not a Karis guy. Karis has not played well this season, has not really been that good at catch and shoot guy. So it's another guy that you're just like, I mean, might as well. And he has not a cheap contract, right? Eric Gordon having a great year. I think he's a little small and they're a little guard heavy already. I don't think they can. I mean, Buddy, I don't think they're going to be able to get in the game for a guy like Buddy Hield, and a Buddy for Duncan swap just doesn't make sense for Sacramento. Harrison Barnes as well. I just don't. Why would they? If they're going to get rid of Buddy, they're going to keep Harrison, or they're going to get more. Miami doesn't have a ton of draft equity, and I mean, that's kind of it. I mean, then you're talking about like CJ, you know, they're not going to be able to get in the table for that. So it's like there's
None
not
of those
really
players,
a lot available this year.
none of those players move the needle enough to get rid of Duncan and
The ones
PJ.
that do, you can't get.
Exactly. Took the words out of my mouth. I don't. I just do not see the not only just what the production, but like going back to someone like PJ. That's even at 7 odd million, 7.5 million for what he gives you. There's no way that Riley's throwing him away. He will want someone big, and those big players you're not going to get. Exactly what you just said. So that's why it's riding with this team, because I don't see anything change unless something big happens where, you know, there's a real blow up somewhere. But none of those players that you just said there, the Indiana players are interesting, but they're not moving the needle enough to get rid of any of those.
They're just, and the way that the league is structured now with the play-in tournament, so many more teams are either sitting on what they have or trying to get better. And like, okay, you can look at a team like New York and be like, okay, it makes sense for them to be sellers, but they're not going to be sellers, right? Like they probably should sell. They should probably see what they can get for Evan Fournier or Alec Burke, right? Those are, I mean, Evan's not playing really great this season, but you know, Alec Burke is playing incredible, and they're just not. Like teams want to make the playoffs and they want, you know, I mean, especially these franchises like the Wolves, the Pelicans, the Knicks, the Kings, these historically bad teams. Jeremy Grant's another name that I feel is going to be a little bit more available than people think. But again, Miami just doesn't have the trade ammunition to get in those talks. And the teams that are better than them that could need the same things just have more to give. Marvin Bagley is another guy. But again, it's like we just keep going to like these really bad teams that are kind of like lingering in the play-in race. I mean, the Kings are what, 2 games out?
Yep. It's the same with like New Orleans. With people always bring up like Ingram. You know, what if Ingram suddenly becomes available? They're gonna command more than what
Miami's not getting them anyway. Like they just don't have. You know, Sacramento is, they're 2 games back of San Antonio for 10. Portland right there at 1 game back. So it's a weird season, right? It's a really weird season, and at worst, I can see good teams in the opposite conferences swapping. Maybe a wing for a big or a big for a guard or whatever, kind of addressing their needs. But Miami's just not in that kind of position. And I just don't think that they'll be making moves at the deadline. You know, and I don't really think anybody's going to be looking at salary dump stuff either. And Miami can't even absorb salary. Which brings me to my next. Go ahead. I'm
just going right back to where we started with, though, that regardless of that, unless it's somebody that's going to move anything big time, which the Heat aren't going to, they haven't got the equity to get in there to start with, not into the conversation. But I'm not touching this team anyway. This team's good. It's good for a 7-game series. I don't want to play the Miami Heat over anybody in the league.
Buyout market, I think, will be more their speed, kind of see who becomes available. A guy like maybe Thad Young. Or whatever. Maybe they can kind of bolster their depth a little bit with the vet for the playoffs. And they have kept the roster spot open, I think, for that reason. So let's see kind of what becomes available then. And I think that's going to be more their time. But, you know, that kind of transitions me really nicely, Dan, to the second thing about Duncan, which bothers me, is I think people don't understand how the salary cap works. And they're mad that the team paid Duncan money. If they don't pay Duncan, Duncan leaves for nothing, right? So the way, and I don't want to demean people, because why the fuck would anybody want to know what how the salary cap works? It's the most boring part of sports. It's literally the worst, right? The Heat decided to operate as an over the cap team because they didn't renounce a lot of their players. By renouncing your bird rights are a rule that you can sign players for over the soft salary cap. And the soft salary cap is set every year to whatever, right? And then once you go over that, you can go over that up to a certain point. You can go over it, you know, I think infinitely, unless you hard cap yourself by a sign and trade or by using a mid-level exception, which the Heat are hard capped right now. And then, you know, once you pass a certain threshold and you get to luxury tax. Because they did not renounce all their players because they wanted to keep some of them, they could not just sign Kyle Lowry into cap space. Let's say they did sign Kyle Lowry into cap space. Let's say they renounced everybody and they signed Kyle Lowry into cap space. They would not be able to sign anybody else except using, and you don't even have access to your full mid-level exception. which is 10 or what I think it was 9.4 million, right? Because if you are if you sign a player into cap space and you don't go over the cap with that, I think they would have been short a couple million with the deals that Lowry got. You don't have access to your full mid-level exception. And you can't sign anybody over the cap because you need bird rights for that or exceptions. So what Miami did was they held on to players' bird rights, signed Lowry in the sign and trade. He went over the cap, and then they re-signed their guys. Because if not, they just lose everybody for nothing and they can't fill out a team. So people are like pissed about the Duncan contract. And it's like, no, you don't understand. They would just straight up lose him for nothing. And that money that he has is not used for anything because it could only be used for a returning player. So it's either you give fucking Kendrick Nunn that money or you give it to Duncan. And the same thing happened with Redacted last season when they gave him like the 12 million and they're like, that could have been used for Jay Crowder. No, because they offered Jay Crowder, I think, more money they didn't want to give the years. Because, Dan, if they gave Jay Crowder the years, they can't sign Kyle Lowry.
It's amazing, isn't
almost like Andy and Pat know what they're doing.
It is amazing. Look, the thing is with contracts, as you said, I mean, you nailed it there. I don't need to add too much. What just makes me laugh about the contracts, there's not really any such bad thing as a bad contract now because those numbers, they just always they are. They're building money towards to get your next player, to get your player you're trading for. So, that's exactly the same what they gave 15 odd million or whatever it was, 18 odd million it could have been for Myers Leonard last season. And people were going, what the hell? It was a number to try and match the next number that you're going for, the player that's going to be in the same sort of field. That's all it is. And it does amaze me, the amount of people. Like, you look at some of what people call the worst contracts that we've seen over the last few years. Russell Westbrook's been traded twice on that contract.
Might get traded a third time.
Wiggins has been traded on that contract. There's no contract really that can't be moved. They're either going to be paid super money because they're a super Chris Paul, look at what he's done. Look at
Joe Johnson back in the day.
Yeah. So, you're either getting big money because you're a special player and therefore you're not getting moved anyway, if you're a corner piece of your player, or the money is big because it's built with that in mind. Whether this goes right or wrong, it can be moved to get a player that's in the same sort of bracket. And it's amazing how many people don't understand it.
By the way, this is the last year that they're paying Ryan Anderson's dead cap. So
he's about the fifth highest paid player on our roster.
Yeah, I think so. He's at 5. His cap figure is 5.2. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. He's the 6th highest player on our roster. He gets paid more than Tyler, less than PJ.
Oh man. What do they do about Tyler's contract, G, next year? Is he going to command max money?
I'm going to go Matt. I mean,
if he carries on this ascendancy, is that what the agent's going to be saying? I want close to that.
So my thing with Tyler is, and Dan, I think it's complicated with Heat players because I think the Heat get players to play ball.
Yeah.
So I think his contract depends on circumstance. If they're not contending for titles, like if they have like 2 second round exits, I think that changes. He might come in there and say, hey, give me, if they're close. But it also depends on whether it's him saving luxury tax. That's a difficult thing to ask. He will be a restricted free agent, so they can match. So I'm sure that they're just going to give him what he wants, because they don't want to get on his bad side. And I think more than anything, after the Dwayne debacle when he left, I think Riley learned a lesson. And there comes a point where you can ask guys to play ball, and there comes a point where that shit stops being funny.
Yeah.
And I think Bam was a good example of that because, killed the Giannis stream, quote unquote, right? Killed their, if they could have probably done more creative things getting Lowry, not being hard capped and being able to kind of make another move or two in the off season, but they couldn't because Bam wanted the contract and Riley could have said, fuck you. We'll see you in June. And I think a lot of teams do that. But I think he learned a lesson, and he's an overly sentimental guy. I think he's overcorrected for some of that, right? With the Dion stuff and the JJ stuff and the Tyler stuff and all that. And I think he's kind of gone back to a point where he's like, this is a new league. This is a new player base. This is a new era of free agency and basketball players. And Riley has to play ball as much as he asks them to play ball. So I know that this is a shitty answer, but it's a complicated question depending on a lot of functions. But I think he'll get what he wants.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's where that is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be. And it's not. Is it?
They value him.
Sorry.
They value him. They haven't moved him.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it next year? Is it end of this year that he's eligible for extensions? I think it is.
I think so.
It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one.
It's going to be tough. I mean, he's been fantastic for them. And he had a couple bad games, and I was like, oh boy, here comes the regression to the mean. And no, he just went right back up. He's for real. He's legit.
He is legit. Absolutely. And the thing is, I was talking about this to somebody else the other day, and I said, the thing is with Tyler is that year 2 wasn't even a bad season. It was just, he didn't have the jump that a lot of people predicted he would. He had an okay season. And people were just like, they've got to remember as well, he's still young. It was his second year. So yeah, we're seeing it. We're seeing the real deal now with Tyler. It's exciting. I think he's a shoo-in for six man. I think he should be a lot higher up in the odds for most improved. But yeah, he's the future is bright for Tyler, 100%.
So not to bore our audience with more cap stuff, but you are correct. Tyler is eligible for rookie extension at the end of this year. 25% of the cap max, 5 years, $181 million. It's about $31 million annually. It's a lot of money. His contract extends up to the 2023 season. He has a qualifying offer in the 2023-2024 season. No way he takes that. He'll probably just get his money. So it would kick in 2023-2024. That is kind of weird for Miami. So you have Jimmy's extension at 45, Bam at 32, Lowry at 29, and Duncan at 18. That is your salary cap sheet for 2023-2024. They could move Duncan and they can solve that issue later down the line. And I think that the Heat have shown, which is why people like upset at like the cap. I mean, they move everybody. They'll move them. If they need to move them, they'll move them.
And that's where the contracts then start to help you. This is what we say. Now those numbers help.
And now you can actually trade. Okay, this is an expiring in a year. You can give a team real cap space, with an asset. Yeah, with a player who's not old, who's productive.
Yeah.
So I'm not concerned about them in that regard, but I think that is that's going to be a lot of money in 4 players. So they really got to figure some stuff out. And I think that their chance to win, Dan, is now and next year.
Yeah.
Particularly now. I mean, with the way that the league has kind of shaken out, Lopez, who knows what's going to happen with him. The Nets are not whole, the whole Kyrie situation. It's just kind of the West is weaker than ever. And the 3 teams at the top are going to absolutely have a bloodbath to get out of there. And you only have to play one of them. It's just likely going to go ahead.
And it is come to one of those where we could see the winner of this year really just be whoever's got the most players available, who's been the healthiest. It could come down to that, but that's why I'm excited for the Heat, because the team depth runs so deep that we've seen it. We've seen evidence of it over this last month. It doesn't matter what team goes out there; it's going to give you a game. And as I said, I keep saying it. I don't want to play a Miami Heat team over a 7-game season.
Nobody does.
Nobody wants this team.
No fan base, Dan. They're like, fuck, I don't want to play them.
Yeah.
I don't want to play them.
Yeah. Going to be interesting.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be, there's a lot of season left. We have some time before the trade deadline. I think it's going to be, a quiet one for the league for all the reasons we talked about, but it's going to be fun to see. We're going to have all-star conversations soon. I think Jimmy, Kyle, and Tyler all certainly will make cases for themselves. Too early to tell with games played. And listen, for all the people saying, oh, yeah, no, Tyler or Kyle won't be an all-star, there's probably going to be a lot of replacement all-stars, considering people are probably going to get hurt or sick. So we may see a year like the Dragic year where he became an all-star, where he was like the fourth alternate. Don't be surprised.
Yeah,
I really want Kyle to get a nod. I think another nod. I think 7-time all-star kind of solidifies his Hall of Fame ballot.
Yeah, absolutely. That would just be fitting, wouldn't it? Yeah, number 7.
That's true. I didn't even think of that. 7's typically like the magic number, for like Hall of Fame, All-Star. Like, you have, a gold medal, 7 All-Star games, and a title, right? Second best player on a title team. That to me kind of like solidifies it. He's at 6 right now. He's also he has an All NBA team. Super robbed of a second All NBA team 2 years ago, the year that Kawhi left. He was really, really good that year. But I mean, we don't have to relitigate that. I love my guy. Sad that he's gone for a bit. Get well soon. Kyle, hope that you can rejoin your guys soon. Real quick, Dan, on the way out, the Dedmon injury, absolutely brutal for them. He has been, I would say, somewhere in their top 5 most important players this season. It's just odd for a guy on a minimum contract who's your backup center. They're +8 with him on the floor, almost +9, +2 with him off, right? So all Miami's lineup data is just typically good, but they're really good. He and Tyler together are about +20 last time I checked. They're +15, net rating. I mean, he's just so integral to how dominant their bench lineups are. As a spot starter, he has been absolutely unreal for them. I can't say enough about Mechanic, how good he's been, how solid he's been. PJ, Kyle, and Mechanic, +5 in a lot of minutes, really good in those patchwork kind of starting lineups. Let me filter that with no Jimmy and no Bam so that we can kind of see during this stretch how those lineups have looked. But Dan, I mean, that's a huge loss. Yeah, they're +10. So Dedmon, Kyle, PJ, no Jimmy, no Bam. They're +10. So they're killing dudes in those minutes in this time of injury.
It's another tip to the culture, isn't it? We got this guy off of the sofa, didn't we? He was literally, and when Bam went down, I was a bit nervous.
Not off the sofa. They got him out of the garage.
The garage. Sorry.
Come on, Dan.
Sorry. And when Bam went down, I was almost saying, look, we got to explore the buyout, because what I was thinking is, Dedmon has been terrific, but I was just concerned about now the amount of minutes he was going to have to play, because his impact was exactly that. It was on those limited minutes, those sort of anything between 15 and 22 minutes a game, just coming in, getting Bam's rest, but being so impactful, which is what he's done. Now suddenly he was going to have to play heavy minutes, 30+ and so on, and he was doing it. Jay, he was crushing it. He was looking. What the best thing I can say, and I've said this a couple of times, not just to Dedmon, but for all of these guys, but Dedmon especially, he's making us not miss Bam, and they're making us not miss Bam and Jimmy, and that's a huge compliment. So for him to go down, it is really, really heartbreaking. The only good news is it's hopefully not going to be too long. We're looking at a couple of weeks maximum. But Omar, man, I mean, it's again, I was nervous about this. I'm thinking, are we ready for this? But he's taking his chance. And again, it's a tip of the hat to the culture. We can seemingly throw anybody in. You mentioned it a minute ago. We was playing KZ Opala or PJ. Was playing them at centre. And it can work. We can make it work. So the good news is with Dedmon is it's not too serious. He's been exceptional. Absolutely exceptional, and I'm totally with you when you say, yeah, he's been, arguably a top 4, top 5 player. I did this on one of our streams the other day. I said, who's been your player of the season so far? 2 of my guys said Dwayne Dedmon has been our player of the season so far. There you go.
So I'm looking at some KZ at center lineups. Not looking good. They're -9. However, when PJ's with him, they're +13. So that's the missing ingredient to that. So if it's just, so the way I'm filtering it is KZ Okpala with no Dedmon, no Bam, and no Yurt7. Those are their 3 centers. That was -10. But if you add PJ to those lineups with KZ, they're plus 14 because I think PJ really kind of solidifies their rebounding in a huge way. So that was working in a way that I think none of us expected it to that well. And PJ's gone for a bit. So that kind of ingredient is missing, which I think is why we've seen a little more Udonis and a little bit less KZ at 5, because I think that Spo realized these coaches, I mean, I think the way that people shit, the second PJ went down, that was when these KZ at center lineup stopped. Because Spo knew exactly how this was functioning. And again, Dan, we watch basketball really closely. You know what I mean? It's not, we cover the league and we're not like some idiots, right? I knew that PJ helped them. I don't know if PJ helped those lineups that much. I didn't know that it was basically unplayable without PJ. You know what I'm saying? Like, incredible.
Yep. Well, this is them, man. This is what they do. They're the guys they've got there, not just Spo. He's back to his coaching team there in the background. They're exceptional. Exceptional what they do. They're an elite team. You never want to see it end. I think we've seen Spo hit our top 10 wins all time. Maybe top 11, was it? I think he overtook somebody on the last.
I thought it was 25.
25.
I think it was 25.
Oh, is it? Yeah, all time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's right. This is what they do. But any UD minutes that we see are great minutes. The moment of the season so far, that double charge.
The double charge.
Man, I thought of you. I just thought again. It's just
that was so much culture. I was watching that in my apartment by myself. I Shoryuken out of my sofa and I just yelled culture.
Absolutely.
It was incredible. What a moment.
An amazing moment. Yeah, UD minutes, man. What? I mean, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
I love him. He's great. I don't want them to play him too much because he's going to break in 3 pieces.
Yeah.
So, get well soon, PJ. Get well soon, Bam. Get well soon, Mechanic. We need you guys. But, man, it's been Dan, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a really fun season. I think, we kind of came into this year with big expectations. I think their preseason play was incredibly promising. I think a lot of us who cover them and watch them closely knew that there was something really special about this group. And they had that 6-1 start. They were absolutely blasting opponents. They were blowing every team out. They were winning against every good team on the road, at home. Doesn't matter. The only loss during that stretch was without Kyle Lowry at Indiana. A very weird game that went to overtime. Very easily could have been 7-0. And since then, they're a game out of second place. They are 21-13. They are one of the most fun teams in the league to watch, getting production out of everybody. Anywhere you look on that roster, somebody is helping and contributing to winning. Spo is having his Mona Lisa of coaching seasons. Lowry has just been such a joy for me personally to watch. We know how much I love him. And the fact that they're here threatening the 1 seed with everything that's happened to them, Dan, is absolutely remarkable.
It's actually crazy, isn't it? It is actually crazy that this team is still in the hunt of threatening the 1 seed, considering what we've had and what we've gone through, the amount of road games we played, when we're about to go on 7 more, for God's sake. This is it's a weird season. It's a crazy season.
Hold the door.
But it's the biggest credit is the fact that we continue to whatever team that goes out on the court, that nobody is going the other day when we had all those players out and we had Milwaukee and Spo said we have enough. I was saying it's going to be, we're going to lose by 20 here, and we won the game. It's that just shows you what this team is all about, and it's why I love them. It's such a fun team. It really is, all the way down to 14, 15. You get production, you get some value out of everyone because they play with heart, man. They play with heart.
Dan, they're 7-3 in their last 10.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
Tied with the Nets and the Suns during that stretch. That's crazy. Yeah. And again, soft schedule, blah, blah, blah. We can couch it all we want. It's incredible.
Yeah. But even like Caleb, you know, he's missed the last 5 games, 4 games, 5 games, and he was a two-way that now suddenly we're pining over. We're
Depend
missing.
on.
That's it. We're going. When is he back? When? I remember I've been shouting this over Twitter. When
We
the fuck
need
is
him.
Caleb back? You know, and this is a two-way player, and I'm screaming, when is he back? I need him back.
That
Crazy.
goes to how thin they are. I put the wrong Chiron. I gotta delete the Chirons when after I flashed the mechanic. I put the wrong Chiron. I had you as Jackson Frank. I gotta delete that. See, we're not as organized here as Miami Heat UK. Dan, where can people find you?
You can find me on all social medias at the Miami Heat UK. We're most responsive on Twitter, but we do have Instagram and Facebook and all that lovely stuff as well. YouTube channel, which we're trying to get running, which is Miami Heat UK. Go
subscribe over there. Go subscribe right now. I'm going to drop a link in the description of the YouTube video. You have no excuse. Cool.
Miami Heat UK TV for that. It's where we run our game day from the UK live pre-game streaming show, which is it's just pretty good either side of the pond, whether you listen to, because we pitch it at 8:30 UK time, which is 3:30 over the pond. So it's your first taste of pre-game sort of depth or analysis. It's only short. We only do 20, 25 minutes each game day. We just break it down and see what we can. And then we're really, all we're doing is we're warming you up for the big guys, for Miami Heat, Heat Beat, etc. So yeah, come and follow us over there. It's a bit of fun. And yeah, as I say, yeah, Miami at the Miami Heat UK for everything else. And of course, finally, our pod, which is Heating Up the UK. You can find that wherever you pod as well.
I'm going to link that in the description as well. I mean, Heat fans have it great because they get you guys a couple hours early. 5 Reasons starts their pregame really, really early, and we're 30 minutes before tip. You have halftime spaces and a bevy of postgame shows. So Miami Heat fans are fed this season.
We are absolutely spoiled rotten. And yeah, from you guys' point of view, what you do, I mean, you know, I'm so huge in what you do, but it's just it's fun. Win, lose or draw, it's fun. It's great analysis, entertainment, everything. The community that you've built over there is mind-blowing, and we're lucky. We're very lucky to have you guys provide us with such great entertainment.
You and everybody that supports this is so kind. You don't know what that means to us, and the work that goes into producing, you know, content about 5 days a week, you know, as much and as hard as we do, and we take a lot of pride and love in. So thank you for your kind words. Thank you to our beautiful audience. I believe this is it for 2021. This is the last episode of the year. I had another one planned, but I don't think my guest is going to be able to make it this week. So Dan, you closed this out. Fitting, exciting. I want to thank everybody all year for everything you guys have done for us. This has been the most successful year of doing this. We're on our 8th season covering the Heat. You know, Brian and myself, as you all know, started this an iPad in my mother's kitchen, and we have whatever this is. This is because of you guys. Our very first emailer was actually from the UK, Dan. We used to get emails from this British guy. He said he wanted to bump cups with us one day. So I mean, to the person who made it, okay, we were like, okay, at least somebody's listening. To you guys on Twitch chat now, to our subscribers, to our patrons, to our YouTube subscribers, to our pod audience, to every guest that made this happen, from Jason Leisure, our very first guest, all the way to Dan Healy. We've just done from players to all sorts of people. So another year doing this in the books. I love you guys. I love everybody that's ever been a part of this and who's ever believed in us. So thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your year. Enjoy all the great content from all our friends that do Heat content, from Miami Heat UK to 5 Reasons to everybody. I mean, so many, to Locked On. Love David Ramil and Wes. Everybody. There's just too many to name, but we're back. First week of January. I believe we're going to be doing the Kings game first. I haven't talked to Alf yet, but I believe it's the Kings game or the Warrior game. Either one. That week, you know, we're back. Either January 2nd or January 3rd. We'll be back with Weird Alf pregame show, Hangover Time, and of course, the Miami Heat Beat podcast. Remember, tomorrow, if you're listening, we're going to do a Wizards online watch party because we have to cancel our watch party on the 29th because this variant is dangerous, guys. So we had a watch party on the 29th for Heat Spurs. That has been postponed. We are going to have a real a in-person watch party at some point this season when, you know, hopefully this wave clears of COVID and we can make sure that we can all meet you guys and gather safely. And we don't want to hurt our community either, because Lord knows enough people are going out as it is. And we should probably stay a little bit more indoors, but we're going to have that for you next year. Virtual watch party here on YouTube or Twitch. I don't know. That's an Alf decision, not a me decision. I'm not involved with that. But stay on the lookout at our Twitter page at MIA Heat Beat. I love you guys. See you next year.